Welcome to the third part in our Rootsnap root analysis software training series. If you haven't seen the first two parts in this series, go back and check those out. In the first part, I show you how to set up your project, import pictures, and make sure your pictures are all ready to go to start tracing out your root systems. In the second part of the series, I show you how to actually start tracing out the roots and show you all of the different tools and functionalities of the software. In this third part, I'm going to do a case study where I show you an example of a time series. So for users who want to take pictures over time and look at root growth and dieback over time, this is exactly how you would do that. I'm also going to show you how to export your data and view that in Excel on your laptop. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add all of our pictures to our project. So this session feature of this software is great for time series. It allows you to import multiple sets of pictures from the same tube at different time points. So we're going to assume that session 1 is the first time that you've taken images of your roots. So let's say the first time that you go out into the field for the season, or the first images that you're taking before you're applying some sort of, before your experiment takes place. So in the first session, we're going to add our first image. Let's add one of these with only a few roots. As you can see, there's just a few around the edges. I'm going to create another session to go ahead and add some more roots, some more pictures of those roots over time. And I'm going to go ahead and create one more session. We're going to pretend this is kind of like our last image that we're seeing after our experiment is done. You can add as many sessions as you want, and multiple pictures per session, and multiple sessions per tube, which makes it really great to be able to do your whole, all of your tubes in one project. So I'm going to go back to session 1. And like I said, we're assuming that this is kind of our first picture that we're seeing of our roots, so there should only be a few. And I'm going to go ahead and very quickly trace out some of these roots that I'm seeing. I'm not being very accurate about this, as this is just kind of a training video to show you all these tools. So if you are actually doing this, make sure you're being a little bit more accurate and going back and changing the diameter of those points and making sure where the points are placed on the root is accurate. So you're getting an accurate reading of those roots. And remember, if you need to snap 2 points together, you just drag it over one and it's going to combine those into one root system for you. Just like that. So I'm just going to do that for right now. Maybe I'll add this little one over here. We're going to say that I'm done tracing out this picture. Now I'm going to go to my, let's say, my week 2 picture of my roots in session 2. And as you can see, it's pretty much the same picture, but now we can see some more roots. But I don't really want to go back and trace out all of those roots that I traced out in the first one. So there's a great feature. This is the migrate roots feature. So you can only use this if you have multiple sessions. You need to have more than one session to be able to use this feature. But once you're in that second session, you can right click on your picture and you'll see this migrate roots feature right there. If I click on it, it's just going to ask me if I have any roots already traced out, and then it's going to delete them. Or I can choose. I don't have any roots traced out, so it's not a big deal. Then it's going to place all of those roots that I drew out in my previous picture onto this picture. And I can use these arrow keys to make sure that the points are adjusted properly and they line up as much as possible with my other roots. I'm going to leave it there, and then I can manually adjust some of those points that aren't exact later on. So now you can see some of those points are directly on the other roots, but we have more roots that have popped up in this second week. So again, I'm going to trace out some more of those roots that have popped out in our week 2 image. Again, if you're doing this for real, make sure you're zooming into the picture so you get a very accurate and better look at the root systems. I'm just being lazy right now. Okay. And I'm going to delete this one down here and just kind of redo that. Okay, now we're going to move on to our session 3, which we're going to kind of use as our end of the project, end of the growing season picture. So again, I don't want to have to trace out all of those roots that I already traced out in my week 1 and week 2 pictures. So again, I'm going to migrate roots, and it's going to place all those roots that I drew in my week 2 right on to this picture. And again, I'm just going to use this arrow tool to adjust those lines and make sure they're all lined up. So a lot of those roots have been traced out previously, but then again, is here we can go back in and add some more root systems and, really trace out the whole thing. So you can keep adding more sessions here for multiple weeks or multiple times that you're going back into the field and taking images in your tubes. But now I'm going to show you how to actually export this data so you can see the actual differences in these pictures. So to export your data, you're going to come up here to File and click Export. And it's just going to ask you where you want to save it. I'm just going to save it to my desktop, and it's going to save it as a CSV file. So now I'm going to open up that CSV file and show you exactly what that looks like. Let me just find it really quickly. Rootsnap export, it'll show up as an Excel file wherever you've saved it. And then sometimes it does take a few seconds to have it open depending on the size of your project or the size of your file. So I'm going to stop sharing and we'll switch over to that main screen. So this is what that Rootsnap export file will look like. Up here, you're just going to have the software version and the date. Oops. This first kind of table up here is going to be an overview from the entire session. So you can see here that it'll list out each window, which tube you had and which session. And so this is going to be an average from that whole session. So all the pictures in that session. It's going to give you the root count, the total root volume, total root length, average root diameter, a bunch of other specs over here. But keep in mind that this first table up here is cumulative for that entire session. So all of the pictures in that session. This second table is going to actually break out each of the sessions, windows, tubes into specific roots. So each one of these lines is a different root system. As you can see here, in our session 1, window 1, we had 15 roots, and it's going to list out all of the data for all of those in each of those rows. Same thing for session number 2, where we had, we drew out more roots. We had 30 in that session. And then down to our session 3, which was our last kind of time series, last part in our time series, looks like we have over 30 roots in there. And so that's where you can actually start seeing the differences in root growth or dieback over time, is how many roots you have, and then all of the data and specs for each of those. As I mentioned in my second part of the series, the naming convention of the roots just goes in sequential order. So for main parent roots, you're going to have a whole number. And then for each branch off of that main root, it's just going to add a decimal place and continue to count. So it looks like the only branch we had was for root 13, and it only had one branch. So it's going to label that as 13.1. So again, this top table is an cumulative for that whole project, and then that bottom table is actually going to list out each individual root. I hope this training series was helpful. We went over how to set up the project, import your pictures, make sure you're all set up to start tracing. We also went over all of the tools and features of the Rootsnap analysis software. And then in the third part, I gave you a case study for users who are wanting to do time series, so you can see that root growth and dieback over time, and how you would set that up. I also showed you how to export the data and then open that in Excel on your computer. If you have any other questions, you can always reach out to our support team or book a consultation with one of our application scientists, either me or our director of applied science, Galen George, and that link is available on our website. Thanks for joining us, and I hope this was helpful.